My ex said no one would ever want me. He called me back after seeing the news feature. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments. And if you haven't yet, please hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. I stood in Ethan's apartment, my suitcase half-zipped on the floor. Rain pounded against the window. My hands shook as I tried to zip it closed. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. That smirk I once thought was charming now twisted into something cruel. "No one will ever want you, Maya," he said, his voice cold and clear. "You're too emotional, too plain, too nothing." He laughed, shaking his head like he pitied me. "You should be grateful I stayed as long as I did." Each word felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. I wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong, to defend myself. But my throat closed up. Tears blurred my vision as I grabbed my bag and stumbled toward the door. He didn't even move to stop me. Outside, the rain soaked through my jacket immediately. I walked down the empty street, mascara running, heart shattered. But somewhere deep inside, beneath all that pain, something else started to grow. Something hard and determined. He thought I was nothing? I'd show him what nothing could become. Lena opened her apartment door at 2 in the morning. One look at my face and she pulled me inside without a word. I collapsed on her couch, and the tears finally came. For hours, I sobbed into her shoulder while she held me tight. "He said no one would want me," I whispered between gasps. "He said I was nothing." Lena pulled back and grabbed my shoulders, her eyes fierce. "Then prove him wrong. Not for him, for you." She disappeared into her bedroom and returned with something dusty, my old sketchbook from 2 years ago. I'd abandoned it when Ethan told me art was a hobby, not a career. "Start here," she said, placing it in my hands. I opened it slowly. Page after page of unfinished designs stared back at me, dreams I'd let die because someone told me they weren't worth pursuing. Then I saw it, a half-finished illustration I'd started the week before I met Ethan. It was rough, imperfect, but it was mine. That night, I promised myself I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. 3 days later, I gathered every ounce of courage and posted my first art piece online. It was the design from my old sketchbook, finished and polished. My finger hovered over the share button for 5 full minutes before I finally pressed it. I used an alias, Maya Creates 26, because I was terrified of people knowing it was me. For the first hour, nothing happened. 0 likes. 0 comments. Just me staring at my phone, feeling stupid for even trying. The voice in my head sounded exactly like Ethan. "See? You're not good enough." I was about to delete the post when my phone buzzed. One notification. A comment. "This feels real. Keep going." I clicked on the username. Verified account. A journalist named Mr. Hensley who covered local artists and culture. My heart pounded. I read his words again and again, each time feeling a little bit stronger. Maybe I wasn't nothing after all. Maybe this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to a direct message. It was from Mr. Hensley. "Maya, I love your work. I'm featuring local creatives in my online column. Would you be interested in being interviewed?" My first instinct was to say no. Who was I to be featured anywhere? But then I remembered Ethan's face when I left his apartment. I remembered his cruel words. And something inside me snapped into place. I typed back, "Yes. I'd love to." The interview was simple. Just questions about my inspiration and process. Mr. Hensley wrote beautifully about my raw, emotional style and how it represented resilience. When the article went live, I held my breath. Then my phone exploded. Notifications flooded in, likes, shares, comments from strangers telling me how much my art moved them. People were reaching out, asking about commissions, inviting me to collaborate. I sat there, stunned, as my inbox filled with opportunities one never dreamed possible. For the first time since leaving Ethan, I smiled. A week later, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I'd thought about blocking 100 times. Saw your little article. Cute. Ethan. Of course he'd find it. Of course he'd have something dismissive to say. My stomach twisted as I stared at those 3 words, so casual, so belittling. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to tell him it was more than cute. Instead, I deleted the message and turned off my phone. But I couldn't ignore the sting. It followed me all day, that familiar doubt creeping back in. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was just beginner's luck. Maybe I wasn't really. My email notification pinged. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the subject line, National Design Contest, Exclusive Invitation. My hands trembled as I opened it. They'd seen my work online. They wanted me to compete against established professionals for a national platform. The deadline was in 3 weeks. My finger hovered over the reply button. Then I thought of Ethan's text, and I hit send. The contest was held in a sleek downtown gallery filled with confident people in designer clothes. I felt completely out of place in my thrift store blazer, clutching my portfolio like a shield. Around me, contestants chatted easily about their previous exhibitions and collaborations. I stood in the corner, trying not to panic. In the restroom, I splashed cold water on my face and took deep breaths. That's when I heard voices from the other stalls. Did you see number 47's entry? It's so basic. I know, right? She's the one from that online fluff piece. Probably only got in because of the sob story. They laughed. I froze, recognizing my number. My chest tightened. I wanted to run, to quit, to prove Ethan right about me being nothing. But then the door opened, and an older woman in a blazer walked in, one of the judges. She looked at me, then at the 2 contestants who'd gone silent. Maya Brooks, she asked. I need to speak with you. The judge's name was Ms. Patterson. She led me to a quiet corner and smiled warmly. I was hoping to meet you. That piece you submitted, it has something the others don't. Raw emotion. Authenticity. She handed me her card. Regardless of how this contest goes, I'd like to mentor you on a local project I'm developing. Community art spaces for underprivileged youth. Interested? I could barely breathe. Yes. Absolutely. For the next month, I worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life. Late nights, early mornings, pushing myself past exhaustion. Ms. Patterson taught me techniques I'd never learned, connected me with other artists, helped me find my voice. I was finally building something real. Then, one morning, I woke up to chaos on social media. Someone had posted screenshots claiming I'd stolen designs from another artist. The accusations spread like wildfire. Comments calling me a fraud, a fake, a thief. I sat frozen, watching my dreams crumble in real time. And then I saw it, Ethan had liked one of the hate comments. I couldn't breathe. The room spun as I scrolled through post after post, watching strangers tear apart everything I'd built. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, most of them vicious. I wanted to disappear, to delete everything, to prove Ethan right by giving up. Lena stormed into my apartment without knocking. "Don't you dare quit," she said, grabbing my laptop. For hours, she dug through timestamps, receipts, old files, anything to prove the designs were mine. And she found it, dated sketches, progress photos, everything documented from months before the accusations started. She posted it all with a caption, "The truth always surfaces. Maya Brooks is the original artist." Within an hour, the tide turned. People who'd attacked me started apologizing. Someone made a video defending me that went viral overnight, exposing the accuser as someone with a history of false claims. The support flooded in faster than the hate had spread. I cried, but this time from relief. Ethan's like disappeared from the comment. Coward. A small local TV station reached out the next day, wanting to interview me about overcoming online bullying and finding resilience through art. I almost said no, the thought of being on camera terrified me. But Lena convinced me it was important to tell my story. The morning of the interview, I sat in the makeup chair, my stomach in knots. The host was kind, asking gentle questions about my journey. Everything went smoothly until she asked, "What kept you going when people tried to tear you down?" My mind went blank. The studio lights felt too bright, the silence too heavy. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Panic clawed at my throat. Then I thought of Ethan's apartment, of walking out into the rain, of every moment since that had led me here. Because I refused to be nothing, I said softly. Someone once told me no one would ever want me. I decided to prove that the only opinion that mattered was my own. The host's eyes welled up. The comments exploded with support. My social media following tripled overnight. Brands started reaching out, small at first, then bigger ones. Art supply companies wanted partnerships. A local gallery offered me wall space. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with opportunities I'd only dreamed about months ago. Then Ethan texted again, "You really think you're famous now?" I stared at the message for a long moment. This time, I didn't delete it or respond. I just left him on read and kept working. His opinion didn't matter anymore. It never really had. A few days later, a direct message popped up from someone named Jordan Vega. The profile showed he was a documentary filmmaker with an impressive portfolio. His message was simple but powerful: "Your story deserves the big screen. I'd love to talk about filming a short documentary about your comeback." My heart raced. A documentary? About me? It felt surreal, impossible. But I'd learned to stop doubting myself. I replied, "I'm interested. But if we do this, it has to be about self-worth, not revenge." Jordan responded immediately. "That's exactly why it needs to be told." Jordan and I met at a coffee shop to discuss the project. He was passionate about telling authentic stories of people who rebuilt themselves from nothing. We spent hours mapping out the documentary, where we'd film, what themes we'd explore, who we'd interview. "I want to shoot one scene at your ex's old apartment," Jordan said carefully. "Just you, standing outside, showing how far you've come. It would be powerful." I hesitated. Going back there felt like reopening a wound. But I agreed. We needed to face the past to show how much had changed. The day we filmed, I stood outside Ethan's building, camera crew surrounding me. Jordan coached me gently as I spoke about that night I left. But halfway through, the apartment door opened. Ethan walked out with someone new, a girl who looked exactly like the one he used to compare me to when we dated. He froze when he saw me, then his expression shifted into that familiar smirk. "Making a little movie now?" "How cute," he said loudly, clearly performing for the camera. Ethan stepped closer, the new girlfriend clinging to his arm looking confused. He didn't realize the microphone clipped to my collar was still live, picking up every word. "You know, she was never this dramatic when we were together," he said to the camera, laughing. "Always playing the victim. Guess she finally found an audience who listened to her complaints." Jordan's hand touched my shoulder gently, steadying me. I wanted to snap back, to defend myself, but something told me to stay quiet. Let him talk. Let him show everyone exactly who he was. She's probably still upset I moved on, Ethan continued, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. Sorry, Maya. Some of us actually have standards. The new girlfriend shifted uncomfortably. Jordan caught my eye and winked, pointing subtly to the recording equipment. Everything was being captured in crystal-clear audio. Thanks for the content, Ethan, I said calmly, turning back to the camera. I think we have everything we need. That night, Jordan sent me the clip. This is going viral, he texted. He was right. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you stay updated. By morning, the clip had exploded across every social media platform. People couldn't believe how I'd handled it, with grace and composure while Ethan revealed his true colors. The comments flooded in by the thousands. She didn't even fight back and still won. This is what real strength looks like. Imagine being that bitter about your ex's success. Brands started reaching out with bigger offers. A lifestyle magazine wanted to do a profile. An art collective invited me to their next exhibition. Even Mess Patterson called, excited about the attention the project was getting. Then my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Ms. Brooks? This is Sarah Chen from National Network News. We'd like to feature you in our segment about women overcoming adversity and building successful creative careers. Would you be available to fly out next week? I sat down hard on my couch, unable to believe what I was hearing. National television? Me? The girl Ethan said no one would want was about to be featured on the biggest news network in the country. Yes, I whispered. I'm available. The flight to the network's headquarters felt surreal. Lena came with me, holding my hand through the turbulence, both literal and emotional. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, how far I'd come from that rainy night walking out of Ethan's apartment. The studio was enormous, gleaming with lights and cameras. The host, a woman I'd watched on TV for years, greeted me warmly and made me feel instantly comfortable. During the interview, we talked about my journey, the importance of self-worth, and how I'd turned pain into purpose. You've become a voice for so many young women, she said. What would you say to someone who's been told they're not enough? I thought carefully. I'd say that the people who try to make you feel small are usually dealing with their own insecurity. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. You get to decide who you are. The segment aired 2 days later. I watched from my apartment, Lena beside me, both of us crying as we saw my story on national television. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, "Congrats, superstar." I stared at Ethan's text, then set my phone face down. I wasn't going to let him ruin this moment. The segment was beautiful, powerful, exactly what I'd hoped it would be. Messages poured in from people thanking me for sharing my story, for giving them hope. But Ethan couldn't leave it alone. As the segment aired, he posted on Twitter, "Interesting how some people build entire careers playing the victim. We all know the real story." He didn't mention me by name, but everyone knew exactly who he meant. Within minutes, my supporters flooded his mentions. They called him out for his bitterness, his manipulation, his desperate attempt to tear me down from my success. Screenshots of his old posts resurfaced, other cruel things he'd said about past girlfriends. The internet can be vicious, but sometimes it serves justice. The next day, Ethan's company issued a public statement. We do not condone the personal behavior of any employee that reflects poorly on our values. We're addressing this matter internally. People commented with fire emojis. His tweet disappeared. His Twitter went private. And I finally felt something shift. The last piece of him that had lived in my chest dissolved into nothing. 2 weeks later, I was working in the small studio I'd rented when someone knocked on the door. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, hands shoved in his pockets, looking nothing like the confident man who'd torn me apart months ago. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I should have closed the door. I should have told him to leave. But curiosity won. I stepped outside, keeping the door closed behind me. "I lost my job," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Everyone saw that video. I can't get hired anywhere now. My girlfriend left me. I messed up, Maya. I'm sorry." I stood there, watching him struggle to find words. A few months ago, this apology might have meant everything. Now it felt empty, performative, desperate. "I've changed," he continued. "I see that now. What I said to you, how I treated you, it was wrong. I just want another chance." I took a deep breath, feeling surprisingly calm. "You were right about one thing, Ethan. Not everyone would want me. Just the people who actually matter. And you never did." I walked back into my studio and closed the door. A month later, I received an email that made me read it 3 times to make sure it was real. I'd been nominated for Emerging Creator of the Year by a National Arts Foundation. The ceremony would be televised. Industry leaders would attend. It felt impossible. Imposter syndrome hit me hard. I'd lie awake at night thinking, I don't deserve this. I'm not talented enough. Someone made a mistake. All my old doubts crept back in, whispering that I'd gotten lucky, that it wasn't real talent but just a good story. Lena caught me spiraling one afternoon. "Stop it," she said firmly. "You earned this." Did I though? Or did people just feel sorry for me? She grabbed my laptop and pulled up a folder I didn't recognize. "Jordan sent this. He said you needed to see it." She pressed play. The screen filled with video clips, dozens of people, mostly young women, talking directly to the camera. Maya's story gave me courage to leave an abusive relationship. She showed me my art matters. I started my business because of her. One after another, strangers sharing how my journey had changed their lives. By the end, I was sobbing. The day before the awards ceremony, my phone exploded with notifications. Someone had leaked private photos from years ago, pictures from when Ethan and I were together, ones I'd forgotten existed. He'd posted them with captions designed to humiliate me, trying to make me look desperate and pathetic. But it backfired spectacularly. The comments weren't mocking me, they were furious at him. "This is harassment. He's obsessed with destroying her. Get a life, dude." Screenshots of his post spread, but not in the way he'd intended. People were disgusted by his desperation. Within hours, a lawyer called me. "Ms. Brooks, we're from the network's legal team. What he's doing constitutes harassment and potential defamation. We'd like to represent you pro bono if you decide to take action." I sat there, stunned. The same network that had featured my story was now offering to protect me legally. Ethan had crossed a line, and everyone could see it. He'd thought he could tear me down one more time. Instead, he'd shown the world exactly who he was. By evening, he deleted everything and issued a public statement apologizing. Too late. The damage was done to him. Ethan's lawyer called me the next morning, his voice tight with professional politeness. "Ms. Brooks, my client is prepared to settle this matter quietly. Name your terms." I thought about it for a long time. I could ask for money, force him to disappear completely, make his life as miserable as he'd once made mine. But revenge isn't the same as justice. And I'd learned that my power wasn't in destroying him, it was in refusing to let him destroy me. One condition, I said. He issues a public apology. Not just to me, to all the women he's disrespected, belittled, or hurt. A real apology, taking full accountability. That's my only term. The lawyer started to protest, but I cut him off. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. 2 days later, Ethan posted a video. His face was tired, eyes red. He apologized specifically by name to 3 of his ex-girlfriends, admitted his pattern of manipulation and cruelty, and took full responsibility for his actions. The comments were mixed. Some people praised him for finally owning his mistakes, others said it was too little too late. For me, it was closure. Not because he'd changed, but because he'd finally told the truth. The night the national feature aired, I sat in my small studio surrounded by Lena, Jordan, Miss Patterson, and a few other friends who'd supported me through everything. The segment was beautiful, 10 minutes of my story interwoven with shots of my art, interviews with people I'd inspired, and footage from the documentary. From rejection to recognition, the rise of Maya Brooks flashed across the screen. I watched myself on national television talking about turning pain into purpose, about rebuilding when someone tells you you're nothing, about the power of believing in yourself even when no one else does. Halfway through, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Maya? The voice was painfully familiar. Ethan. I stepped into my bedroom, closing the door behind me. On the TV in the living room, my voice continued telling my story. What do you want, Ethan? I'm watching you right now. On the news. His voice cracked. I'm so proud of you. And I'm sorry. I was so wrong about everything. I looked at my reflection in the window, seeing someone I barely recognized, someone strong, confident, unbreakable. Ethan kept talking, his words tumbling over each other. You were never nothing, Maya. I was threatened by how talented you were. I tried to make myself feel bigger by making you feel small, and I know that's not an excuse, but I need you to know. Ethan, I interrupted gently. I forgive you. He went silent. Not because you deserve it, I continued. But because I'm done carrying around what you put on me. You were wrong about me. But honestly? You were necessary. What do you mean? I smiled at my reflection. You broke me down so completely that I had no choice but to rebuild myself from scratch. And in doing that, I found out who I really was underneath all the doubt you planted. So thank you, I guess. For showing me exactly what I didn't want to be. Through the phone, I heard him crying softly. In the other room, the segment ended with a standing ovation from the studio audience. My friends were cheering, calling my name. I have to go, I said. Take care of yourself, Ethan. Really. I hung up and walked back into the room, where the people who truly mattered were waiting to celebrate. The response to the feature was overwhelming. Within days, a publisher reached out about turning my story into a book. A major arts organization wanted me to lead workshops for young creators. Universities invited me to speak. The emails kept coming, each one more surreal than the last. Jordan called with news that made me sit down hard. The documentary just got accepted into 3 film festivals. And there's interest from streaming platforms about expanding it into a full series, following your journey and other people rebuilding from setbacks. I couldn't speak. A year ago, I'd been curled up on Lena's couch, convinced I was nothing. Now I was being offered opportunities I'd never even dreamed possible. There's more, Jordan said, his voice excited. A nonprofit wants to partner with you on a nationwide campaign supporting young creators from disadvantaged backgrounds. They're calling it the Maya Brooks Initiative. My eyes filled with tears. A campaign named after me? You've become a symbol, Maya. Not just of survival, but of transformation. People see themselves in your story. That night, I lay awake thinking about the girl who'd walked out of Ethan's apartment in the rain. I wished I could go back and tell her. This pain is temporary. What you build from it is permanent. 6 months later, I stood backstage at an international arts conference in Paris, my hands shaking as I adjusted my microphone. Through the curtain, I could hear thousands of people filling the auditorium. They'd invited me to speak about resilience in creative fields and to showcase my work on the main stage. Lena squeezed my hand. She'd flown out with me, refusing to let me do this alone. You've got this. Just remember? You've already done the hardest part. This is just sharing it. The lights dimmed. My cue. I walked onto the stage, and the applause was deafening. On the massive screens behind me, my designs rotated in a stunning digital display. I saw faces in the audience, some crying, some smiling, all of them looking at me like I was someone worth listening to. I spoke from my heart about the journey, about being broken and rebuilt, about learning that your worth isn't determined by the people who leave but by the person you choose to become. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Somewhere across the ocean, in a small apartment, I later learned that Ethan had watched the live stream. He'd texted Jordan, "She really made it." Back home, I decided to visit my old neighborhood, the place where I'd grown up dreaming of becoming an artist. The community center where I'd taken my first art class as a kid was still there, though more rundown than I remembered. I walked inside with a specific purpose. The director recognized me immediately. Maya Brooks. We watched your feature. The kids were so inspired. That's actually why I'm here, I said, pulling out a check. I want to donate art supplies and fund free classes for any kid who wants to learn. No one should have to give up on their dreams because they can't afford materials. Her eyes filled with tears. This is incredible. As we toured the facility, I ran into Mr. Hensley, the journalist who'd first believed in me. He was there covering a local story. When he saw me, his face lit up. I knew, he said, shaking my hand. I knew from that first piece you posted that you had something special. You gave me my first real chance. Thank you. Outside, a group of teenage girls waited nervously. They held a handmade banner. We want to be like Maya Brooks. I spent an hour talking with them, answering questions, encouraging their dreams. This, I realized, was what everything had been for. 3 months later, I stood on another stage, this time for a TED-style talk titled Becoming the Person They Said You Couldn't Be. The theater was packed. Cameras recorded every word for broadcast across multiple platforms. I'd rehearsed for weeks, but standing there in the lights, I decided to speak from my heart instead. Someone once told me no one would ever want me, I began. That I was too emotional, too plain, too nothing. For a long time, I believed him. But here's what I learned: when someone tries to make you small, they're usually speaking from their own fears, their own limitations. Your worth was never up for debate. The only person who needed to believe in you was you. I talked about the dark days, the doubt, the moments I almost quit. I talked about choosing to rebuild, about finding strength in vulnerability, about turning rejection into fuel. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. So to anyone who's ever been told they're not enough, you are. To anyone who's been rejected, dismissed, or broken down, you can rebuild even stronger. And to anyone who's currently in that dark place, wondering if it gets better, it does. Not because the pain goes away, but because you become someone the pain can't control anymore. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off stage, my phone lit up with a notification. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. You really made it. I smiled, turned off my phone, and walked into the crowd of people waiting to share their own stories. Ethan's words didn't matter anymore. They never really had. Because I'd learned the most important truth of all, the only person who'd ever needed to want me was me. And I finally did. Before you go, drop your location in the comments. I love seeing our global community. And please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story.